Imagine a world where more women had the time and resources to fully explore their genius. Welcome to She Rebel Radio, a community-driven podcast dedicated to supporting women to unlearn conventional rules and create businesses of significance. This is our International Women's Day series, bringing you insights and advice from noteworthy women entrepreneurs here in the UK who strive to create more meaning, impact and purpose. Our headline partner for this podcast series is Natwest. Natwest have been a pioneer in supporting women in business since the publication of the Rose Review in 2019, which identified the disparity between male and female entrepreneurs when starting a business. Natwest have been implementing key interventions and providing essential wraparound support to realise the unrealised potential of female founders. My name is Lulu Minns. I host retreats and create spaces for entrepreneurial women to explore their genius. And today I'm going to create that same space for you right here on this podcast episode. Welcome to episode 90 of She Rebel Radio. Bear Kind, from banking to bamboo with Lucy Jeffery. Lucy is the founder and CEO of Bear Kind, who make bamboo socks which save endangered animals, which she launched back in 2018 whilst working full-time in a bank and went all in as an entrepreneur in December 2020. Now, Lucy remembers her first word being socks, and looking back at her journey as a young entrepreneur, owning a business making them now makes total sense. She gets Bear with us here and shares her journey in creating a business centred on kindness. Lucy, you've been popping up on my Instagram and Facebook since we connected, so it's amazing to have you here. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm good, thanks. Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Oh, yeah, I'm really looking forward to diving into Bear Kind. And as I've said, I've seen that you really are a face of the business. I've loved your video on Insta showing us all the animal socks at Bear Kind, the orangutans, my personal favourite, tropical birds, etc. Why is it important to you to be such a face and a real person, a real woman behind the business?
Yeah, it's a really good question because I have to admit that I wasn't to start with. I've always been a bit shy on camera, so I was quite happy when I first started to not have my face on the screen on my social media. And I think going through the process of running this business, I realized that I needed to start introducing myself more to my followers and my customers. And that's when I actually kind of had my first bit of lift off on Instagram, where it started getting, I had more followers and more people engaging, because they were like, suddenly there's a human connection to be made rather than just a product and a business. And that's what happens really with customers, is they're wanting to make connections and purchases from humans rather than just the business. And over the last few years, people have really transitioned into shopping with smaller businesses, independent businesses, because they want to support the human behind it. So it's become quite a challenge for me, because I've had to kind of jump in front of the camera, do more videos. I know the video you're talking about as well with the tropical birds. I hated filming that, but it's done quite well. So I know that I need to do more of it, putting my face on screen and talking about the brand. It is really important. And, it's something that I need to do more of as well.
Yeah. How did you get out of it? So many women report that kind of feeling shy. I used to be super shy at school as well, and not wanting to be visible in their business, and that being a real block. What did you kind of use to kind of overcome that?
There's no real quick fix to it. I would say it's a case of you have to kind of jump in. You can take some baby steps, start with photos. You don't have to go straight on Instagram Live. I don't do anything like that. But start with some photos. Put your personality into what you're writing. Kind of you don't have to bear absolutely everything, but be a bit more personal about your journey and why you're doing it. I don't overshare too much on social media. I'm still conscious that it's not something that I want to do in terms of my personal life, but just kind of baby steps, and then you can start filming. And actually something I'm doing this month is every day I am recording myself talking to camera, and then I'm posting on Instagram, and it could be anything. I just put it on my stories every day, and it's just rubbish. It's just me just chatting away. But it's actually making it a bit easier for me every single day, just because I have to just talk to camera. And yeah, so I'm kind of obviously taking that step. And there is no real easy fix. You don't suddenly just become comfortable with it, but I have actually found it does get easier as you go along and actually practice doing it.
Yeah, that importance in the practice. I think when I first started, and just before we hit record, I said I used to be a litigator in court, so I am used to speaking, although I was petrified it a bit when I was in law school. But doing it for my business, I had to be more me as well. So sometimes I used to just record without any even intention of sending it, and just kind of in the uncomfortableness of watching it back.
Yeah.
Seeing how that felt. Definitely. So you said, I love that socks was one of your first words. So it makes total sense now that you're making them and selling them for a living. But when I was interested, when did you discover that aha moment in your entrepreneurial journey? I think it was Steve Jobs who said it's quite sometimes only when we look back that things kind of make sense. Whereas when we're actually, starting to create something at the time, we might think, why am I going this? Why am I being pulled in this direction?
Yeah, sometimes it does feel like you're just kind of making it up as you go along. But yeah, so for me, so socks has been like the headline product. This is the product that I quit my day job for, but it's not the product I started the company with. So I started with other bits and pieces of kind of like sustainable based products. So reusable straws, recycled t-shirts, recycled tote bags, things like that. That I was just playing around basically. I knew I wanted to have a bit more impact on the world in a positive way, and I just thought, right, I'll start here. And I was experimenting. I got a bit of traction. I got into that space of businesses trying to do better in the world, and it wasn't until, so that was 2018 I first started the company, and it wasn't until the end of 2019 where I came up with this idea that I wanted to have like a charity business model. So now I have these socks where 10% of the profits are donated to the animal on the sock. But I didn't start with socks. I actually started with the charity model. I was like, I want to try this. Like, I want to donate to animal conservation. It's something I feel really passionate about. And so I just started with a pair of socks. I started with my turtle socks. So that was my very first design, linked to the Turtle Foundation. And it just went really well. So I just launched them. I didn't really know what I was doing. I just went, here's a cute turtle design. Let's see how they go. Socks are a great Christmas present. I love socks. And my customers loved them. They really resonated with the model. They loved the design, and they just started asking me for more designs. So then I brought out another 4, including your orangutans, your favorites. And then, from there, they went really well. And it wasn't for another couple of years until I started bringing out a lot more designs, because I then kind of quit my job and had the time to do so. But for a while, it was my original 5 designs that I was running with. And I think just when it's Christmas, socks do so well. So I knew at that point during the Christmas sales period that I had a sock that people really liked. And I wanted to, my mission is to have like all the animals in the world on socks. Like, I want a huge range of animals that you love and animals that you've never heard of. And so we'll go from there.
Well, as well, because you can make it really personal, can't you? With your turtle socks, actually. I was like, oh, my niece would love those. They're going on holiday to Barbados, lucky devils soon. And she was talking to me about swimming with the turtles. She's only 6, or seeing them. So I was like, oh, she'd love those. So you can have that real personal present, but practical as well.
Exactly, yeah, and they're always coined as such an easy gift at Christmas, because they're fairly generic with their sizing, and everyone wears socks. But then you can, as you say, add that personal level of, oh, I just know that she loves pandas, so I'll get her panda socks, and it makes gifting almost a bit more personal, but also easier. And you could almost buy socks for the whole family. And I did see that over Christmas, where I had one customer bought 20 pairs of panda socks because she's obsessed with pandas and wanted her family to all have these panda socks. But then you notice like the customers that are buying like a huge variety of socks over the Christmas period, and you can make that assumption that they're buying socks for all the family, and they've chosen animals based on a specific person.
Yeah, and again, that ties into the sustainability piece, doesn't it? Instead of buying wasteful Christmas presents, how many of those do we see? There's something that is not useful.
Exactly, yeah. And I mean I'm biased, but these socks are just great. Like, I love wearing them. So you think, would there be someone out there that received them and be like, nah, I wouldn't wear them? I just think most people would wear them. Like, they're a pair of socks. They are functional, they're really high quality, and they last a long time as well. So yeah, as you said, it's not a wasteful Christmas present.
Yeah, definitely. So only yesterday, actually, I was listening to Desert Island Discs. It's a podcast that I love.
Yeah.
And I came across the proverb, until the lion learns to speak, the tales of hunt will always favour the hunter. Now, Bearkind is designed from the ground up to be good. Why was kindness and compassion and kind of being a voice of the animals so important to you?
I think because where I've grown up, so when I was little, I wanted to be a vet. I just love animals. I
Me
like all.
too. I wanted to be a vet, and then I'm really squeamish, so I wouldn't have been a very good.
Me too. I hate needles. So I was like, oh, that's that dumb drain. So,
Yeah.
but it's one of those things that I just adored animals. You know, I always had I had a huge collection of Beanie Babies. I still have them. That's something I want my kids to have. Like I've got all these cat Beanie Babies. Like I was just obsessed with them. I loved wildlife shows. I'd loved vet shows and all of that. So I've kind of grown up with this feeling, and I just love animals. And then in this world where we have more and more documentaries coming out that I think one of the big ones was one of David Attenborough's ones where there were walruses falling off a cliff.
Yeah.
And everyone, it was all over social media how emotional it was. But I like cry so heavily when I see videos like that. And I mean, in my line of work, like without actually going directly to that cliff and like tracking the walruses back up, I'm like, how can I help?
Mhm.
And so hence why donating profits to animal conservation charities, it's my way of giving back to the world. And I think my skill set now is in growing this business. But also I'm like have so much admiration for the people actually out in the field helping those animals directly. It's amazing. So being able to kind of channel funds into that area and provide more education, I guess, and more limelight for these charities and these species is something I'm really proud that I can do.
Yeah, incredible. And it's funny you mentioned walruses actually, because Lizzie, who's a good friend of mine, she has previously been on She Rebel Radio, does a lot of support work for seals and a walrus on the Isles of Scilly
Uh,
back in the summer. So I was going to say, are any seal or walrus socks coming in soon?
Well, this is actually exclusive then. I do have seals on the way. They're in production right now. So I'm hoping March, April time we'll have seals. And we don't tend to, we'll start teasing designs nearer the time once they're being released. So we haven't done any photos of these, but they're a beautiful like lime green color. They're really cool. And they're seals, right? So they're adorable. Walruses, no, I hadn't even thought of. So I need to put that on my list. I've just got a huge list of all the animals
I
that
bet.
I need to get through. Yeah.
Yeah, I call my dad a walrus as well, so I definitely get him a pair of those for sure. So 10% of your profit, you've already said, goes to charity. You've got the charity business model, and the sale of 4 pairs of socks enables you to protect 1 acre of rainforest. You've already talked a bit about how important that impact is for you. So is there anything else you want to say about that impact? And then also, what about the different kind of animals? Because I think you've got a pair of rabbit socks. You know, how do you kind of measure, I guess, the impact for each animal? That's a job in itself, I imagine.
Yeah, and we're partnered with quite a few charities now as well. So rather than having kind of one charity that we donate to, we try and make it more specific. So most of the socks donate to the specific animal charity. So orangutans are Orangutan Foundation, turtles, Turtle Foundation, etc. But there's a few others that are. So we've got a jungle range, and there's 7 of them, and they donate to Rainforest Trust UK.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a mix really of those kinds of models. But yeah, from an impact point of view, what we do is, so if you go and donate to a charity, they might tell you that, oh, if you donate £5, it gets us this. If you donate £50, it, does this. So we use those monetary values and we translate it into what we call a sock currency. So we know what we're donating per pair of socks, but from a customer point of view, what does 10% even really mean? It actually sounds like quite a small value, but what we do is turn it into this sock currency. So that's where that acre of forest saved comes from. So we know that for every 4 pairs of orangutan socks that we sell, we can protect 1 acre of forest for a whole year. And that's mad. It's just 4 pairs of socks. And actually orangutans are our like most popular socks. We do sell a lot of those. So I think it was about 800 acres of yeah, I think it was 800 acres of forest we were able to protect last year just through the orangutan socks. And then, yeah, we make this currency for every sock design. And then what we've done is at the end of the year, we make this charity impact report. So we did it for 2021, and we basically added up all the donations for the whole year per charity. And we put it into this document and said, this is the impact that our socks have had. And I think naturally with some charities, it might be a more expensive approach. So, for example, it's only 4 pairs of socks for an acre of forest, but you might, for example, with our bee socks, you need 128 pairs to plant enough wildflower seeds to fill a rugby pitch. Or still an amazing impact, but they're just different figures based on what the charity can give us. Yeah. And so that's what we kind of put it all into this impact report and share it. So customers can actually understand that, wow, this is what my socks did last year. It's quite incredible.
Yeah, amazing. I love that. And I love the idea of sock currency as well. So you have a banking background, and I understand you check your business finances daily. What is your advice to other entrepreneurs with any business, but maybe, a business that is also centered on kindness and purpose, who maybe bury their heads in the sand when it comes to the finances?
Yeah, and I'd say, like, yes, I've come from a banking background, but I didn't do that much like numbers stuff. I think so I wouldn't say I was an expert on any of this, but there's some simple things that you can do. And it's rather than thinking about the numbers, it's more about thinking about what you're recording. So it's actually very simple to break down the numbers. So, for example, last year I did my daily profit and loss. So I did this every day. And I would put in like what I've sold and how much it costs me per product, shipping, packaging, my fulfillment warehouse, the donations I've made, how much I spent on ads. And then, separately, I record my overheads for the month. So that's things like salary and subscriptions and my website and things like that. It's not ridiculous on the numbers because all you're doing is recording what is there. Yeah. But it gives you a great overview because you're basically understanding if you are actually a profitable business. And it was extremely manual. And I would say that now we do our trading on a weekly basis now. And we've got my partner is a whiz on spreadsheets. So he's done me loads of automation. So basically we pull all the information from my website and stick it in, and it's amazing. It does it all for me. But I think when you're first starting out, especially, it's really good to be close to those numbers. And as you said, try not to bury your head in the sand. They don't need to be scary. It is just a case of recording it on a daily basis and putting it somewhere so you have that. And it's amazingly powerful because it means you're understanding what is happening in your business on a daily basis. And you can make decisions based on that, like things like, I'd go through and say, oh, my packaging is actually quite a high percentage of my price, my costs, so I change packaging. It's things like that you might not necessarily think to do unless the numbers are right in front of you. So it's very manual, but I just don't think the numbers are something to be scared of. It's actually scarier when you don't look at them and then you kind of go a few months without looking at it and then go back into it. That's when it's scary because it can get overwhelming.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of like, personally, I know every January I go through my personal direct debits and go, oh, why am I paying for that, subscription, etc. But for business, you need to do it much more frequently because that fuels the business.
Yeah. And it's about doing things that don't scale until you get to the point where you're like, okay, I need to level up on this. So yes, I did it daily because I could. And then it got to the point where I was absolutely burning out on these numbers. I was too busy to be able to do it. And so we put automation in. And it's helped a lot. And, I went through a funding round. I took investment based on these numbers that I was doing, and I felt way more comfortable talking about the numbers to an external stakeholder because I knew it daily. No one knew those numbers as well as I did. So it's actually a really helpful exercise.
Yeah, we've all seen on Dragon's Den over the years. That's the downfall.
It terrifies me when I watch that show. My heart is racing because I'm like, oh.
Yeah, we had Catherine from OMGT, Matcha Teas. She was on Dragon's Den, actually. She was
really wow.
Yeah, our really early series. So and shared a bit with us with her story of that. So yeah. So what is your inspiration and process for designing and bringing a new pair of socks to life?
So when I first started, it used to be that I'd pick an animal that I thought would be popular. And I'd go with that. So they tended to be almost like the famous endangered ones. Everyone loves orangutans, and so that's where I went, the process that I went through. But now it's more based on feedback. So we went through the process of, okay, people were asking me for elephants and giraffes, and so I went down that route of starting to work through the list of animals that were asked for the most.
Yeah.
And from a color point of view, it started off quite random. I put colors together that I thought worked. So naturally, the turtles have got a blue background and they've got green, because that's, a general color scheme. And it started, and again, it went through. So orangutans is like a dark green and an orange. It makes sense. But then I started needing to like experiment with other colors, because I didn't want all of my socks to be blue or green. Like, they're very like nature-based colors. So it was a case of kind of looking at the range as a whole and seeing what would fit in. But now what's interesting is we're really leveling up how many animals we're doing. So we're wanting to get to 100 by the end of the year. We're on about 20 to 30 in the pipeline at the moment. So we've got a lot to do. And we're kind of going with some more endangered ones, so ones that people won't have heard of, and it's almost like a bit of a risk, because we don't know how they're going to go down, because people will have never seen these animals before. So for example, we've got this animal called a numbat, and it's an Australian species, and how do I describe them? It's a little marsupial, like almost like a little wallaby crossed with a mouse, crossed with a squirrel, and it's got tiger stripes. It's quite amazing, but they're very, very cute. But there's only 900 of them left ever. That's it. Like, they're one of the most endangered animals in the world, but most people won't have heard of them. So we've got that on design at the moment, and we're getting samples made, and they're incredibly cute. But I actually don't know how these are going to go down, because are people buying based on how endangered the animal is, or how much they love the animal? So that's going to be an interesting experiment, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that ties back, doesn't it, to that being a voice for those animals that are not heard, that are in danger, because we can get
exactly
the popular kind of bigger campaigns that are there, and the smaller things, literally. I presume they're quite small, these little what were they
look, they do, a number, NUMBAT. You'll have to Google it afterwards. They're really cute. But and that's the other thing. We've got quite like cute animals, right? But I also want to start going into more niche animals that maybe aren't so typically cute in the conventional sense. So not just all things fluffy, but that's where I've started. Just because you have to make kind of commercial decisions that make sense from a commercial point of view. Like, if I started with super rogue animals and only lizards or something, then you're not going to get your target audience as much. So I've started with ones that make sense, penguins, orangutans. I know people are going to like them. But now I can be a bit more experimental with it.
And that kind of opens the front door, doesn't it, and then brings in space for the other stuff. And actually, I think I saw on LinkedIn the other day, I know you like LinkedIn, I do too, I can't remember what it was. It was something like, where does ugly and fugly work, like, and it was about trainers, I think, but saying that like ugly things can they can have their impact.
There are certain animals as well that are like, I guess in the conventional sense, they're ugly, but people love them. Like, trying to think, like things like naked mole rats and things that are like, wow, like they're very unique. But would that sell on a sock? I don't know yet, but we're now getting into this experimental phase that I'm really excited about.
And it goes with the times, doesn't it, of celebrating diversity and kindness and all of those things, and not being a one size kind of fits all, literally.
Yes.
So your intention at Bear Kind has been to give people a warm, fuzzy feeling when buying and wearing your socks. How important has that been for you to have a clear intention, both for you and your business, and also for your customers, so they know what they're getting?
It's really like the center of everything when you think about it. Like, yes, I've got this vision with the animals, but if the customers didn't resonate with that, then it just wouldn't work. Like, the customer is, what's fueling the business. So I think it's always been super important for me to get a product that's right, because as much, you could have all the good intentions in the world and donate, I don't know, 90% of the profits to charity. But if your product is crap, people won't buy it and people won't come back. So we've done our research and we found these products that I'm like, yes, this is the best. I love these. I wear these every day. I just want to kind of bring joy to people's faces. Like, I want the when you pick up your socks in the morning, I want it to be like a good part of your day. And you put them on, you're like, this is exciting. I love orangutans, and now I've got them on my socks and they feel so good. My feet are happy all day. And I've given a little bit back to the planet, and that's that warm fuzzy feeling that you're talking about. And it doesn't have to be, because everyone does this thing where when you first buy something, you get that little buzz, like it's, you've shopped, you've bought something great, you feel, consumerism, etc. It gets to you. But I want that to kind of continue as you go through. Like every time you pull on that pair of socks, you're like, yeah, I love this pair of socks. I'm so glad I bought it. So that's something that sits with me on almost a daily basis, I guess. Like, are we doing that? Are we giving that to our customers? And so far we think so, because we get a lot of repeat customers, and we get good reviews. But if there is anything, if, for example, over Christmas we had huge volumes, so now and then we'll get a pair of socks that might have a hole in it, or the parcel's gone missing. It happens. I hate it. I really hate it, because I want every customer to have a fantastic experience, but these things happen. So it's about fixing it as quickly as you can, and with hopefully a smile on your face as well. And so that's my thought process with it anyway.
Yeah, and it sounds like, and that's how strong intentions work, in terms of it being a filter that runs through every decision you make, and how that customer feels on a multitude of levels, not just the bamboo that you're using and how it makes them feel on their feet, but also the purpose behind it. So it's really, really powerful. So what was the catalyst for jumping into your business fully in 2020, and what have you learned about yourself?
So I was working at the bank full time for a few years before I quit. And when I started the company, I didn't actually think I'd ever be able to quit and do it full time. Like, it wasn't actually really going through my head. But 2020 hit us all like a train. And I'd been commuting beforehand. I was commuting London to Birmingham 3 days a week, which was absolutely hell. So when COVID hit and we locked down, I guess that was the first catalyst towards it, because I realized that I could never go back to commuting. Like, I was like, just didn't want to go back on that train. So I was enjoying working from home. And it just, I think they call it like the 25-year itch, or a quarter life crisis. Yeah. That's the one. So I think I was going through that, because I was having this like, oh, what am I doing? I've never really wanted to work for a bank, but the job's easy and it's well paid, it's comfortable. What do I do? Do I apply for charity jobs? Do I do this? Do I do that? Like, it was just kind of a roller coaster of emotions. So when Christmas season of 2020 hit, I actually went into it with a mindset of, this is a bit of a Hail Mary. I'm going to chuck a load of money into advertising. I'm either going to burn through all the stock and then shut up shop, or I'm going to carry on. So it was actually that close to kind of make or break, which is crazy when you think about it. But it just took off. It went so well that I was like, oh, wow. Okay, maybe this, it validated what I had thought previously, that this is a good product. But I needed that traction back again after a very slow COVID year. That November, I mean, we did sell out. We sold out by mid-November, which is actually appalling for a business just before Christmas. You want enough stock to see you through. But I was like, this is it. I can do it. I'm going to jump. And once I'd had that like flick of a switch in my head, I had to do it. I was like, I have to scratch this itch. I want to go. I want to do this full time. And I haven't looked back. It's been amazing.
Yeah, amazing. And I love, that risk that you took, is literally like, this is sink or swim. I'm going to put the money behind it and throw it out there. So what do you think has been your biggest challenge as a younger woman in business, and how has Natwest Accelerator supported you?
Sometimes it's knowing what to do next. And I don't know if this is necessarily a problem from being a young woman in business. But it's definitely, I could kind of sit there, and going from like the corporate world where you have your boss telling you what to do, and then when you've done it, it's a yes or a no or a do it again, or you've got that like immediate validation and that immediate guidance. Whereas when you're working for yourself, the world is your oyster, and that's great, but also you're like, oh, what do I do? So it's setting your intentions and setting your objectives is something that I've had to work through and make sure I'm heading in the right direction. And I would say that, and now I'm on this Natwest Accelerator for 6 months. Some of the models they use, I really like. So it's a case of just getting into a session and they say, right, what is one problem you're trying to work through? And then you'll discuss it with a group of other like-minded entrepreneurs, and then just get it down on paper. So rather than avoid the things that are like, because you might just decide not to approach it. You think, right, I know I've got this issue, but I'm not going to tackle it head on. But you're kind of forced to, because you're in this session, you're on Zoom, and they're like, right, what's bothering you? Let's talk about it, and then you deal with it. So I think that network effect of speaking to other like-minded people who are there to support you and to say, we get it, we've done this before, we're in the same boat, 100%, we're feeling the same. Suddenly, like, very validating. And it helps you to work through it and tackle things head on. So that's been helpful, being able to network with other entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and as you say, in terms of kind of compared to corporate, it's much more linear. You know, there's an outcome, there's a start. And what we tend to do when we come from those backgrounds, when you're in work and there's a problem, you try and avoid it, right? You don't have to
I don't care enough. I'm not paid enough to do this. So.
Yeah, exactly. This is not my problem. I'm going to chuck that over there. So yeah, when it's your own business, you have to tackle it head on and only speak to people that are in the same arena or have some experience, I think. So I think some of the worst people kind of new entrepreneurs can do is talk to people that are not in the arena and haven't got a business, and their fear comes straight in.
Yeah, very true. Although what I found recently is, so we do monthly board meetings, and it's because I've taken investment. I've started to move into this approach of, like, I'm going to treat myself as a big business. Like, I'm going to treat myself as the business that I want to become. So we're having these monthly board sessions, like, it's all like very serious and putting all our numbers together and then sharing it with investors. But I'm actually going through the process of sharing that more widely. So we're bringing in friends that we know that are in a certain industry. We've got consultants, we've got people that work for fashion companies and that do like more commercial numbers and things like that. And maybe before I'd have been a bit more reluctant to share this so widely. I mean, they are still my friends, but sharing it with all these people. But actually those outside views are so helpful, because they always bring their own view on it. And yes, you're right, because I think you want to share with the right kind of people that aren't going to bring their fear and their, because a lot of other people might be more risk adverse than you. But actually getting those opinions and getting people from all these industries that I have no experience in, it's great to have that insight. So I would say to people, if you have people that are in this sphere, like, for example, one of my goals for this year is to get into a large retailer such as John Lewis. So one of my friends, her mate used to be a buyer at John Lewis. So I'm like, great, can I speak to her? I'm not asking for favors. I just want to speak to them to understand the process and to understand what, just talk to me a bit. And honestly, just a 20-minute conversation will help so much. I guess you use your network.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're doing that in a very intentional way. It's almost kind of, market research, isn't it? Of like, how can I get to know more about which avenue? Interestingly, you said about that risk aversion, and one of the kind of outcomes of the Rose Review, which obviously NatWest is supporting, and we're discussing throughout this podcast series, is that women tend to be less willing to take risks. What advice do you have for women to get out there, put their money where their mouth is, and take the risk?
That's really interesting. I'm wondering why, like, my thought process now is like, why are women more risk averse? As I've got older, I've got more risk averse, but to weird things like roller coasters and stuff that I'd been fine with when I'm younger. So I wonder if that's like a biological thing. That
I think it is when your brain matures past 25 or something, we suddenly get fearful about kind of death.
We've got to protect our young and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, they say learn to drive when you're 25. I made the mistake of not doing that and doing it when I was like 28 or something.
Oh no. That's funny. How to take more risk? How do I do it? Talking with the right people. So I think there's certain people in your life that will have the absolute best intentions for you, which means they might be more risk adverse for you. So for example, parents and people like that who are like, all they want is the best for you. So they might think a big risk might be not worth you taking. And so, but my parents have been super supportive, actually, because, my mum was, she did a lot of my shipping for a while, but I actually think bringing them in, okay, so this is my advice. I'd bring them in more. So if you just go to someone and be like, I think I'm quitting my job to do this, they'll be like, whoa, okay, wow. And they might be super supportive and excited for you. But at the same time, if they're not bought into what you're doing, if they don't know what you're doing, if they haven't seen any of the process, then it's actually a big ask to go to someone and ask them to be super supportive with zero information. And it's the same for you and your brain. Like, you need all the information, and that's how I personally work. You assess it from like a holistic way. So look at all the risks available and just do a bit of a recce and say, okay, well, if it all goes tits up, what is my backup plan? And I think it's just planning a bit more. So maybe you are more risk averse, and that's fine, but work around it in a way that, you've prepared yourself, and, I've got savings and I've got a partner who's on board and things like that. It's okay to be scared to do something, but I guess the brave thing is just doing it anyway and then working with what you've got after that.
Yeah, having a bit of a plan, surrounding yourself with the right kind of people. I was going to say, it's like asking what's the best that can happen. Sometimes we ask what's the worst that can happen. And
absolutely, I love that.
Yeah, you end up back in the same job or whatever. Like, that's where you are already. So it's not, amazing. Thank you so much, Lucy. Where can we find you? Where do you hang out online? Where can our listeners buy some of your socks?
So my website is bearkind.co.uk, and that's BARE, kind. And probably the best place to connect with me is Instagram. So that's just @bearkind as well. But if you're big on LinkedIn, Lucy Jeffery. I'm assuming if you put Lucy Jeffery and Bearkind, I'll probably pop right up. Love to connect with similar people, similar businesses. Love hearing about other businesses. Just so exciting, especially like women jumping into this. It's amazing that there's just so many women out there that are jumping into this, and I think as soon as you see more that are doing that, that's where this kind of power of the network and the community comes in. So don't be shy, come say hello.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of the day, and we'll speak soon.
Thank you. Bye.
You've been listening to She Rebel Radio. It's been an honour to support you taking the time to discover more of your genius, and we thank our partners Natwest for supporting this series. Since the publication of the Rose Review, Natwest have been working to deliver real support for women to create their business of significance. From launching the Investing in Women Code to backing $1 billion of female entrepreneurship funding, Natwest are also educating young women through Dream Bigger, inspiring the future generations of female entrepreneurs. From their Business Builder online course to their flagship Accelerator program, Natwest can support you to upskill at your own pace in a way that allows you to stay in control as you start, scale, and succeed. Visit www.natwestbusinesshub.com for more. If you'd like to attend a retreat with me, visit lulumins.com, and don't forget to join us in furthering the conversation on social media. Just search for NatWest Business or Lulu Mins in Google and on all social media platforms.